I have a draft of that I've
Yes.
provided to.
But I'm assuming you don't, at this time, you don't want to remain on that subcommittee, or it's up to you?
Well, I think it's important to get the newest member in that.
Right.
Because the newest member then finds out what the policies are about.
Right, it's a way to learn.
And it's forced learning.
I enjoyed it, if that helps. And I'd be happy to stay on it, but I yield to Mr. Bowers whether he'd like to continue.
I'm good for anything. Like I say, I'm interested in supporting the committee.
I'll move to appoint Mr. Bowers to the policy subcommittee.
Can we do both at the same time?
We can do both.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a split vote.
But you just don't want to say his last name.
No, I'm okay. Michael K. I'll move to.
So we have, do we have a second?
I will second. Oh,
Okay, we have nomination of Michael Shakji and Cliff Bowers to the policy subcommittee, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Athletic subcommittee. That's, Jerry and I have been on that athletic subcommittee for 4 or 5 years running. If anybody else is interested, I would not hesitate giving up my position on that subcommittee. If anyone
I
else-
want to remain on that
Right,
committee.
I figured you would. So if anybody else have any interest in that athletic subcommittee? Michael? It means meetings in the middle of the day, maybe once every 2 months.
It's a little tougher for me.
Okay.
Because of my commute,
What?
but
We can't be on it.
I nominate.
Oh, that's right. Cliff
I
Candy.
nominate Mr. Webster.
That's right.
For the athletic subcommittee.
and I nominate Mr. Venezia.
Okay, so may I have a second to?
Second.
Do it together.
Okay, second to both. All right, so we have nominations of myself and Mr. Venezia for the athletic subcommittee. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Now we have youth at risk.
I'd be happy to take.
I was going to say, this is another one that I thought Cliff would be good at. Mrs. Baca served on this subcommittee for, I think, as long as it's been in existence.
She was very involved in it.
Right. And it does take up a lot of time. That's why I thought Cliff would be good on this subcommittee.
I
It's
agree.
a lot of morning meetings.
Nominate Mr. Bowers.
Second.
All right, we have a nomination, Mr. Bowers, and a second for the youth at risk subcommittee. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Then we have the finance planning team, which I don't think we have to nominate, right? Because that's
Yes, vice
yeah,
chair.
chair and vice chair. And then the last one, and I'm not sure the status of this committee. It's the liaison to the fiscal advisory committee. We've had 3 different members on it: Mr. Bowers, me, and Karen. It's a committee that meets at night. Mike Prisco was chairing the committee. It was a subcommittee set up by the selectmen. I thought this might be a good one for you. It meets once a month usually. They discuss financial issues in town, how to cut costs, save money in both the schools and in the towns. I thought that would be a good appointment.
I mean, we've had 3 representatives
Right.
at different times, and we've all been told not to come back, so
Right.
you can take a shot
Well,
at it.
to be fair, it is appointed actually by the board of selectmen. You would need this.
We appoint it, but
Oh, we-
you do have to get sworn in.
Right.
It's a sworn position, because it's a committee that was appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
I think it's a little bit, I think the committee still exists, but right now, I don't think Mike Prisco can be the chair anymore
No.
because he's on the Board of Selectmen, so. But it's a good way to really get your feet wet in terms of town finances and
Quick
how
learning
they work.
curve on it.
Yeah, it's great. So if we have a nomination for that?
I'll be happy to nominate Mike Kushaki.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a nomination second for Michael Kushaki for, we are all going to say Michael K. by the end of this meeting.
I recommend it.
Except for Mr. Bowers. I'm just,
I'm just glad his first name's Mike.
as the liaison to the Finance Advisory Committee. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, unanimous. Okay, so I think we have to do a chair shuffle at this point, don't we?
Vice Chair, I don't know that we do.
Oh, yeah, we don't.
No,
Oh,
as long as you're in that chair, I don't.
all right. Okay, thank you, everyone, for your patience.
And now we get placards. Excellent.
Now Carl knows where we're sitting. My water.
You got the name tags. So it's got one.
Get it right? Oh, they already have it?
The other one, order.
Look at that. I know, oh, yeah. Temporary?
Yeah, it's a piece of paper glued over student rec.
And you have no name.
Sinking further and further in the hand.
Okay, now to our regular meeting. Our first order of business is, as every meeting, is public input. Do we have anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard?
Something that's, it's only not on the agenda.
If it's not on the agenda, if you want to speak, now's the time.
No, okay.
Okay.
Is there anybody,
Let the larger group go first, and we'll go next.
And just state your name and your address, and just so you know, on public input, we take the input, we may discuss it,
We
but
may
we
just
don't,
say,
we don't
"Go
make
away."
a decision. No, we don't make a decision. We'll usually take it under advisement, and then, either it's a decision that goes to the administration or that the school committee will make in the future. So I just wanted you to be aware.
That works for me.
And if everyone would sign your name on the
Right.
attendance list.
If you haven't
that's
signed
here.
in yet, when you leave, please sign in on the,
Okay,
Absolutely,
Go ahead.
excellent.
my name's Samantha Miller, 68 North Street.
Marcia Good, 1 Sachem Road.
This is about a school-wide policy request, proposal for changing to try to keep kids all in one elementary school. Since the kindergarten lottery issue came up, I've been trying to work with Mr. McKay, who's been very helpful, and Dr. Manville about trying to find a way to keep the kids that have siblings, older siblings, in one school. Currently, there really isn't any kind of policy, so I don't know if anyone sort of didn't think about it or whether it just didn't happen. But we realized there really needed to be a school-wide policy because the issue seems to be the little school and the hood school. Currently, there's, I think, 4 or 5 kids in each of those schools that are going to have to be redistricted just for the kindergarten full day to the batch, which will leave those parents with older siblings at one school and the younger siblings at another school.
so those would be set for both the little and the hood.
That's correct. There's no issue at the batch because the batch has currently 3 full-day kindergartens, so they'll never have to be redistricted. But the hood and the little, for whatever reason, obviously somewhat is size, but there's no redistricting happening for the batch, but just the hood and the little. But what we just wanted to bring into your attention was the benefits that would happen if you have siblings in one school. I mean, obviously, it's a personal issue for those of us that have a younger sibling in the school, but really, there's a transitional issue. I mean, for the younger children who've been coming to the school for open houses, for PA meetings, for pickups and drop-offs, they've been introduced to the school, to the teachers, to the people in the building for now 2, 3 years, 1 year, whatever it might be. So that transition is easier for them, for the school committee, for the school community, et cetera. If you split the parents into 2 PAs, they can't volunteer anymore for 2 PAs. They don't have the time. There's issues that are school community-wide, not just children-wide. There's events, there are open houses and shows and parent-teacher conferences, which are always at the same time for the 2 schools, which will mean the teachers in the schools will have to allot separate times for the parents that aren't able to attend both events because they're in 2 different schools. I didn't do any of this research. Marcia and I tried to, but it's happened in other places, and research has been done that shows that student achievement, is directly related to the parent involvement. And if you split those parents from those 2 schools and the kids in those 2 different schools, the parent focus and the involvement is decreased, makes it more difficult. In our personal situation, there's no real logistic way that we're going to be able to pick up our kids at 2 different schools. So it's just an issue that we wanted to bring to your attention. I don't know if it can be done for the 2010-11 year, but I think it's a policy that needs to be put in place.
And we did put out a petition just to kind of get feedback of the families in the community that do have that similar situation. We got quite a few responses from people who are in support of a policy change or trying to rethink or trying to come up with some fair solution that would kind of accommodate everybody so that we are not splitting up our children and we're not splitting up our families to have to, you know, pick up at certain different times. And it's difficult with the time differences as far as when school starts at the Hood, there's a 20-minute difference. So if we're talking about waiting in line for buses or pickup or drop-off, there's going to be a good, very small window where I'm going to have to either rush from one to another and possibly make one of my children be the last one for pickup. It makes things a little bit more difficult, and if we could come up with some kind of solution to make it easier for children who do have older siblings in the school to be able to stay in that school system. And I'm not quite sure what a fair way is to do that, so we're kind of looking for your input or your suggestions to see if there's something that we could do about it to make it fair for everybody in the Hood, Batch, and the Little school systems.
Any comments from anybody? Jared?
You make some very good points, obviously. But this has come up in the past, and I think what you're looking for is a policy to say that siblings wouldn't be split and sent off to a different school. And I think the school administration bends over backwards to make sure that doesn't happen. But there may be that occasion when it's a necessity. So for me, I'm opposed to any kind of a policy because it gives us the flexibility to deal with that situation. And again, I think that we're predisposed to keep kids from the same family in the same school. But on occasion, something may happen where there's a real disparity in the enrollment in kindergarten or even in some of the other grades. And you're forced into doing something like this to balance things out. So again, I mean, my feeling is that the administration will do everything possible to keep the kids in the same school, but I would certainly be opposed to putting into place a policy that had to be the way that the kids had to stay in the same school. So, but you make some good points.
Could there be maybe like a recommendation that maybe the children that have siblings, older siblings in the school may get, I don't want to say preference, but have a little bit more leniency or preference to?
Preference to home school, not
Homeschool.
preference to availability of full day, because that's not fair in kindergarten or any other situation, but preference to being placed. I mean, in this situation, again, I'm not trying to make it this one, but there's about 4 or 5 kids that have siblings, and there's 4 or 5 kids easily in that kindergarten that don't have siblings, that could have been
That's
the
the
ones.
question I have. I know I had gotten, I don't know if I got emails
Come on,
from you,
yeah.
but I've gotten information from both of you in that there are children who don't have siblings.
Correct.
At-
That are in the full day
Right,
program
at the Hood or Little,
school,
who are,
or Little.
right.
Yeah.
But
So-
then you have to consider geographic concerns as
But
well,
there's no
because
bus, so geographically,
Yeah,
it's not gonna
geographically
really
it's not.
matter for either one of them. I
Because
mean,
one's
either
at the
one of
Hood,
them is gonna be put in a bad situation.
you know, but one could be living next door to the Little and not have a sibling and be a candidate to move to the Hood or something. So, but yeah, I would certainly think that, you know,
Well, I think we, if I may, I think we need to think about how we then do the prioritization. I mean, there's a difference in having a policy and a preference, and certainly when the preference is to keep them together, we also have to make sure we do that well. And, you know, understanding how this actually makes the community work harder so that they have all of these issues. I mean, I would like to know whether or not, you know, how many cases this actually happens and what the actual impact is. I mean, I understand that it is necessary to do this for lots of different reasons, but we have to make sure that we make those decisions very well and make sure that we don't, you know, overburden certain families over others, particularly if we do this for a couple of years in a row to the same family. I understand the idea of, you know, keeping enrollment low. I think we all want class sizes to be, you know, as low as possible on the elementary side. And I think most people would agree that we need to keep that in mind, and that's a huge priority, but the burden to the parent, the family, and to the children is very important also.
but again, I think the administration's very conscious of this. And,
Yeah.
Well, we have both principals here, so I guess if either one of them would like to comment, what exactly is the policy? So this is for full-day kindergarten.
Well, they can,
There's room
There's
for
not enough-
everybody, but some of them have to be moved
Right, there's not
to
enough
batch,
space
right.
at the Little or the
Or the
Hood,
Hood.
correct? Looking at Mr. Lassise, okay. And so how do you decide who goes where? What's the process?
Big favorites.
You just say that because you're leaving. Now that he's leaving, you can say that.
I said that last year.
Well, I think the part of it becomes the lottery piece. You took everybody's name, the Hood school, and put it into a hat, and drew the names out of the hat. And, you know, if there was a sibling policy in place, those names would have been put to the forefront. However, it's not there, and then the concern becomes preferential treatment and those kind of things, so we just did it as fairly as possible.
Right, if either you or Bill do